So welcome everybody to this public meeting of Left Horizons, the socialist website Left Horizons. Obviously, you'll all be aware of the local elections that took place on Thursday and which seemed to take forever to count. We were still waiting for results on the Sunday. And obviously, it's a big subject in the Labour movement as to what we can draw, what conclusions we can draw from these results, the future of the Labour Party, the future of the Tory Party, how it might change any perspectives we have for the future. So I'm going to ask Andy Ford from Warrington to speak for a little while. Then I will speak just a little bit on what happened in London, in the London result. So there we go. So I'll ask Andy to kick us off, and then we'll be open for questions and contributions from other people if you want to. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Ray. Okay. Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Ford. I'm right for the website, and I'm a Unite trade union representative in the NHS, and I'm still a member of the Labour Party, just about. Okay, so the local elections, you could say, why are we looking at it? Is just something that's happened. It's a very valuable snapshot of public opinion. It helps us kind of work out what's likely to happen at the general election, and also, most interestingly, you can begin to see the fault lines developing in the Labour Party and also the Conservative Party. But of course, the local elections, the big difference is the turnout. Turnout people at 30% as opposed to 60% in the general election. The elections are mainly held in urban areas, so just to take a straight read across of the results and layer it on top of a general election wouldn't be the right thing to do. And Scotland has its own dynamic, but it's still valuable, not so much the numbers as the processes. So if you look at what happened, the big picture is the Tories lost half the seats they contested. So that means if all the council seats had been up for election, they'd have been decimated by about 50% or 40% of their councillors. Massive. That swing in Blackpool South, as John's article said, is absolutely huge. One of the biggest swings ever since the war anyway. And, Conservative spokespeople saying, well, there aren't any safe seats for us now. And that was a picture came up at last year's May elections, where the rural seats, there's massive swings to Lib Dems from Conservatives. And as we know, a lot of the Tory creeps have these incredibly safe seats, like is it Liz Truss in northwest Norfolk? It's never going to go into any other party, whatever she does. Matt Hancock's in mid-Suffolk. In Cheshire, we've got all those seats around Tatton with SMV. So they've always thought they're sitting pretty in their blue shires, but that's not the case anymore. And then you've got the red wall as well, which looks like it's not well and truly over, but beginning to go. With the Metro Mayor elections, John's article points out that Sadiq Khan, ever so slightly, but enough to the left of Starmer. It's not difficult, is it? The Labour HQ are running things in the Labour list before the election. Sadiq Khan's level pegging with the Conservative. It never happened. Ray can speak about this a bit more, but the Tories pinned all their hopes on the ULEZ revolt. And there's been some articles from Inside Croydon on the website about the dabbling of the Conservative establishment with illegal action against ULEZ cameras, vile racism, really getting into the Trump type of territory. So we can go into that later, what the perspective is for Conservatives. But it didn't work. It mobilises a few people, a lot, I suppose you could say. But mainly, most people in London do commute to work on the tube, don't they? So to them, ULEZ is not. There's people care about it a lot, but it didn't turn into the big vote winner that the Conservatives hoped for after the Uxbridge by-election. Andy Burnham, he was on our local news today saying he wants to build 10,000 council houses. Also saying he's going to tell Westminster that right to buy had to be ended. So that's really putting a message to Starmer. I don't think they are pledged to end right to buy, just have some sort of tinkering with the system. The only thing that the Tories could point at was the Teesside election, where this Ben Houchen, who's very, very connected with the Tees Freeport, and that's beginning to look like it's unravelling, complicated deals. He did win, but I think that's when he was elected the first time. He got 72% of the vote. The Conservatives getting 72% of the vote in Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, Darlington. Quite amazing. So a lot for Labour to do there, and that's all to do with the corrupt Labour establishment there was in County Durham for years and years. So Starmer laid hold of Ben Houchen. That was for him. To even stay in place was great, according to them. But he rebranded himself. He didn't use the word Conservative in his literature, and he sort of made out he's like he was just a mayor. a local lad, you know, he's brought up in Yarm or somewhere outside Yarm, who's got big ideas, going to regenerate the whole of the region with his Freeport, which of course is all jammed tomorrow. And he's interested. I did a little look at the Crewe Central by-election, where a Conservative won the safest Labour seat in Cheshire Council, with a guy who just played down his conservatism and played up his litter picking skills and pavement reporting skills, and he did win. And I noticed in quite a few southern towns and cities, the Conservatives ran as local Conservatives. So that seems to be that they'll go into either pavement politics, or else if they go the ULEZ way, Suella Braverman's way, it'll be into full-on Trumpism. So Labour gained 185 seats, it's true. But if you had the Lib Dems, Greens, Independents together, it's 271. Yes, Labour did well. The Tories did abysmally. But the vote is not a pro-Labour, pro-Starmer vote. It's an anti-Tory vote. And that's shown by where people got an option, a realist option to do something else. That, like in the Shires, they're going into Lib Dems. The Greens are picking up suburban and urban seats, actually. And the Independents, most of them were Muslim candidates disgusted with Starmer's abysmal position on Gaza, which is basically to completely follow the US State Department, even if it means bombing schools, hospitals, murdering thousands of children. That's no problem to Starmer. If that's what the Americans want, that's what he wants as well. So Starmer himself is a laughing stock, isn't he? When people mention him, it's this adenoidal voice and charisma of a wooden spoon, someone said. And Brits vote against the Tories, their corruption, the ineptitude, the fall in living standards, massive decline in public services where people can wait hours. There's someone in Warrington lately waited 8 to 9 hours with a broken hip, I think it was, for the ambulance to come. So it's like the third world, really. People are starting now not to rely on the ambulances, but just get a taxi, get someone to take them to hospital. So that's what happened. If we look at what it means, what does it tell us? Big picture, it's going to be a Labour landslide. There might be 100 Tories. The Lib Dems might break through into a significant figure, else they might just, as usual, pick up a fringe number of seats. They're looking at dozens of seats, I would say, at least, which will leave Labour could easily have 300 plus seats. It's hard to say. The opinion poll people worked it all out, but it's going to be a big majority. Because the problem with that is the better Labour do in the polls, the more arrogant Starmer gets, and the more he feels able to diss the unions and his own supporters. So now again, rumblings have surfaced of Starmer reneging on New Deal for working people. If he does that, there's going to be hell to pay in the unions, because people like the Unison leadership, Osdall leadership, GMB, they've bet their shirts on New Deal for working people. Put up with that, put up with this parliamentary fixing, put up with Gaza, we'll get New Deal for working people. That was even watered down at the forum in the summer, where they basically make it easier for employers to have bogus self-employed people, which was supposedly a red line. So Labour landslide, but beginning to be talk of picking holes in their New Deal for working people, and there's the Green reversal. Everything's up for U-turns with Starmer, isn't it? His 10 pledges disappeared. A landslide, but the Tories are looking at a wipeout. We might see a lot more Liberals. If you remember the 21 last year, there was a 21% swing from Conservative to Lib Dems in Somerset. That's where Rees-Mogg has his seat, and all these safe places like Surrey Hills or Aldershot, they're up for grabs now. And it's beginning to spook. I think it's beginning to spook the Tories, because they thought, if you get given a seat like Richmond that Rishi Sunak's got, or rural Norfolk like Liz Truss has got, you're basically set for life. You collect the MP salary, you go and sit on the boardrooms and trips and junkets. And Liz Truss has spoken more times in the USA than she has in the House of Commons this year. But though that is up for grabs, that is now not a surety, and that's what's spooking them out. They can't think what to do. I think the Red Wall will return. Someone needs to do the maths. But the Red Wall, it was only won by lies and false promises and a massive conspiracy. So Boris promises to fill 42 new hospitals. In a lot of seats, you can see the Tories, every time there's an election, they waffle on about reopening railway lines, and they pay for a £200,000 feasibility study that never quite delivers. There's lots and lots of false promises. High Speed 2 was the biggest false promise of all, never happened. People remember that sort of thing. And the whole, this 2019 election, it'll never happen again, because there was a conspiracy of UKIP, Conservatives, Lib Dems, the BBC, the press, and the Labour Party employees, a good proportion of them, to do in Corbyn, and that won't happen again. So I do think the Red Wall will return, because there's nothing for the people in towns like Bolsover or Ashfield or Darlington for them with the Conservatives. The town centres are still derelict. People still on being harassed on benefits. The infrastructure projects haven't materialised. The big business locations haven't come in. So I think that it will come back, but it doesn't seem to be quite sure. And then Labour List is basically the forum for the aspiring Labour right-wing careerist type people. But they had an article about Jamie Driscoll in the North East, and it was fascinating. And it showed inadvertently, because Labour List premises, good appeal to the floating voters, win them over, and then we can get a majority. But their analysis of Jamie Driscoll's support inadvertently confirmed what we say, which is that a socialist programme will win people over and solidify people, and especially solidify the working class into a bloc. And after all, that is the majority of society. The working class, who are ethnic minorities, lesbian, gay people, East European immigrants, they're all part of the working class, aren't they? But the opposite is identity politics, where they're all different, and they've got nothing in common. Driscoll was leading in the youth. He won over ethnic minorities. He was attracting Labour Brexit voters. A quarter of his voters had been Conservative in 2019. He picked up votes from the Greens, the Lib Dems, and the UKIP Brexit people as well, some of them. And the analysis showed that the more politically engaged people were going to Driscoll, but the mass were going to this awful Kim McGuinness that Starmer's imposed. So that was the contest there. And what we say to some very sincere people get impatient and saying we need to stand against the Labour Party and Starmer. Why should I give money to Starmer? He's in favour of genocide. We'll do our own thing. But the answer is the mass of the working class are heading towards Labour Party. Millions and millions of them are going to vote for Labour, and that's when Starmer's real job begins. I was also interested to see that Driscoll had good support amongst working class pensioners. That'll be the sort of people who remember their history and know what a Labour Party should look like. And apparently they liked him taking on the establishment, which everyone likes, and that's half the appeal of demagogues like Farage. He makes out, those are a stockbroker and a millionaire, he makes out he's against the establishment. Even Trump does that, does he? He's against the establishment from his gold throne. So I thought that Labour List article unwittingly confirmed our point of view, which is very much a minority point of view. Did you see, if people saw Labour's election broadcast, it basically was lots of people popping up saying, yes, well, I voted Conservative in 2019, but now Starmer's shown what can be done. Labour is completely different, so I'm voting for the Labour Party. And there's even that meme of that woman saying, I'm voting Labour. Really? Well, I didn't like Corbyn. Really? Okay, I'm a Conservative. So blatant appeal to Conservatives. And he talks about winning over swing voters. He talks about winning over the red wall by appealing to the Brexit voters. But that's a tabloid version of the working class. It doesn't make sense. But in spite of which is the received wisdom of all the pundits, professors of voting intentions, the establishment. The establishment received wisdom. Yeah, some people always vote Labour, some people always vote Conservative, and then it's this tiny sliver of people in the middle, like Worcester woman, or the categories had Mondeo man, and they're the ones that you have to appeal to. And that's what, we know that Starmer's advisors are all the sort of hacks who count through student politics and think tanks. They think they're very learned and strategic. They actually just follow a template. I was going to mention Wirral as well, as a look at, in micro form, what could happen with the Labour government. So last year, a coup got rid of the Corbynite leader of Wirral Council, replaced Jeanette Williamson. By all accounts, everyone agrees she's highly competent. Every party nominated her to lead the council. But anyway, her Starmerite, Blairite deputy cooed her out of existence and took over. And now the Greens are the second party in Wirral. And if you look at the map of Wirral and where the Greens are, they're not in the suburbs, the middle class areas, eating muesli, but their wards are Birkenhead, Tranmere, Bebington and Bromborough. And a very capable Labour councillor called Jo Bird, she's Jewish but was expelled for anti-Semitism. She's the dynamo of the Wirral Greens, and they do the casework as well because they're motivated. So that could be a message of the future, because people got to find a home and they can't tolerate these Labour drone type people. So the vote is fracturing. Starmer is fracturing the Labour coalition, and that brings us to the independent candidates who stood on an anti-genocide platform. So there clearly is in the Labour Party now a hierarchy of racism, isn't there? Which people have been expelled for, just remarking that it's a really bad idea to blow up a school or things like that as anti-Semitic. And then you've got at the bottom of the pile, you've got the Muslims, where people get away with absolutely terrible things said and done about the Muslim voters. And there's even some sort of horrendous creep in the Labour bureaucracy said about West Midlands. Well, it looks like they're going to lose West Midlands because 12% of the voters voted for an anti-war candidate, and pro-Palestine candidate, and someone whose name hasn't emerged yet, as far as I know, said, "Oh, right, Hamas win again," making out like the Muslims are concerned about the war in Gaza are Hamas. And quite a lot of people, even Jess Phillips, of course, she's got a bit to pay attention to the large Muslim vote in her constituency, said that is unacceptable and needs to be stopped. So it's the hierarchy of racism. And that's blown up in their faces now because dozens of anti-war candidates won seats in Bradford, Blackburn, Oldham, some long-standing councils. I was looking at the election results for Bradford and the Labour vote has hemorrhaged all over the place. They're still going to have the council, but only just. Galloway's party deposed the deputy of Manchester Council. And the thing is, there's like a law of the Blairites, isn't it? The safer the seat, the worse the candidate, because they think, well, they've got no one else to vote. Also, we'll just put anyone in. And then half the time, these people in the safe council seats, don't do any casework. They can't be bothered. Why should they? So then that's how they're vulnerable to pavement politicians, like in Crewe Central. They're also vulnerable to, a capable Muslim candidate who's known in the area and got to do case. There's even a thing in Stoke years ago where the BNP got a candidate who won by a council election on Stoke Council. It's called Bin Bag Batkin because he used to go every weekend with a bin bag and pick up litter, and that was good enough. He got elected. I think it's one of those people claiming he didn't know what party the BNP were. But it just shows these Labour councils take things for granted in the working class wards. They are vulnerable. They deserve to be vulnerable, really. Someone said they're the invisible men and women. And even if you look at Merseyside, there's no large Muslim vote on Merseyside. But even then, an independent candidate who's well known for getting a lawnmower out and cutting the grass on the verges and recreation grounds because the council won't do it. Called Ian Smith. He only just missed. He goes to Gaza protests every week as well, and he made that known. And he only just missed getting his 5% across Merseyside. That's quite some doing. And Tusk stood in Merseyside for the mayor. I think they got 2.5% or something. So that brings the left, what you could call the left of Labour candidates. It's almost not worth discussing, but since this is the one time we might do the Tusk results, the usual very small votes. I feel sorry for the candidates and their supporters because they'll have worked really, really hard to get their 1% and 2%. Some people got 4%, some people got 5%. There's an occasional flash in the pan. In Southampton, they stood in every ward in the city and they got lots of 1%, 2%. Lots of them got 86 votes for some reason. I don't know why. One woman who seems to be a Muslim activist got 18% in one ward. They stood in every ward in Coventry. Again, your 1s, 2s and 3%. I think Dave Nellis got 3.5%. So what I would say is that there's nothing wrong in principle with standing. I don't think we're going to condemn Driscoll for standing because the alternative is just to slink away into the undergrowth without making a stand. But I can understand people doing it at least. It's not a viable tactic to challenge Starmerism. A great candidate like Dave Nellis getting like 3.5%, it's just not worth it. The amount of work that they have to put in to get that as well. And
20 minutes.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes ago. Galloway's Workers' Party got a couple of seats, but if you look at their programme, apart from Gaza, it's awful. It's all over the place. It's very, very socially conservative. Not sure you could describe it as a socialist programme. You might stand for nationalisation, I don't know. So just to sum up, really, we all know the Starmer Streeting Reeves cannot run this country. It's not because their personal attributes so much. It's more that their political programme is not facing up to the reality of British capitalism. It's been in decline since 1914, after all. It's accelerated since Thatcherism. If you look at the whole history of the country and the industrial history of the country since Thatcherism, what's left? What is left? And it'd be very interesting to go through and look at all the promises the Tories made about privatising BT, we'll have this, or, letting car companies withdraw their factories or go bankrupt. And now we've got steel and Tata Steel. Even in Italy, Meloni, who's a neo-fascist, basically, has nationalised the steel factory in Italy rather than let it go to the wall. But this lot are letting Tata destroy Port Talbot. So I think these results give us an indication of how it will all fall apart, how the Labour Party. But of course, in that falling apart will be a process where socialist ideas become apparent again, get a hearing, that the police state can't continue within the Labour Party, whether Starmer do a Ramsay MacDonald and shift over to the Tories, or whether he'll leave, or you can see there's going to be a lot of stuff happening once he's elected. And as for this thing about them reneging on the New Deal for working people, that could be a malicious float of an idea, but Sharon Graham from our union has warned him off doing that. And she said something that was very wise, actually. said it can't, not money, it's not going to cost the government any money to give workers' rights. It's got to be due to lobbyists. And I think there's a headline in The Guardian today or yesterday that people in the city of London were actually complaining that the Labour Party everywhere, every gathering, they're there on a big, what they call the charm offensive or prawn cocktail offensive. So that is dangerous. And Mandelson keeps popping up saying, no, we need to engage in more consultation with workers' rights. The fact of the matter is workers have so badly often been treated so badly. There's a lot of pent up demand for proper wage rises. And if we had proper trade union rights or anything approaching it, working class people would be able to solve their own problems rather than wait for politicians to do it. So I know might be some people on this call who think it's a good thing to do standing against the Labour Party, but I do think it's a road to nowhere, because even if you win your odd councillors, you're distancing yourself from the mass of the population who are just moving towards Labour Party in big numbers, and that's where we need to be. Right, thank you, comrades. Well, that's 3 minutes, Ray. It wasn't, was it?
That was a little longer than 10 minutes, Andy. Tell you the truth.
Right. I was going on one side of A4 equals 3 minutes.
2.5 times. But let me just put myself on spotlight for a minute. Okay. So obviously my job is just to sort of talk about London for a little while before we go on. And I think that the important thing to say is that the campaign in London was very lackluster. I mean, I did go out campaigning, although very, very many on the left didn't. I mean, my local constituency Labour Party is one of the few that voted in the trigger ballot against Sadiq Khan, but no. So I did go out and do the bare minimum, and it's very noticeable that I was out with councillors and some officials from the mayor's office. It was like the mayor's own staff and local councillors, and that was it. And there was a drop in turnout, particularly in inner London. I think the turnout in outer London, the more leafy, the more middle class areas, was raised because ULEZ did play a certain role. There was no huge rebellion. I mean, people were saying ridiculous things on the eve of the election. People were saying ridiculous things like Sadiq Khan's going to lose. And in the end, of course, he won by 43% to 32%, and there was none. But the large swings to Labour, there was a smaller turnout in central London, but there were larger swings to Labour in central London. But there was much smaller swings in the suburbs and the more middle class greener areas. And in one particular area on the borders of Essex, there was like no swing at all. There was no swing at all. It was like an identical result from the last time. So I can't say ULEZ was not an issue at all. This is the ultra low emission zones for people who aren't familiar with British or London politics. These are kind of banning cars which are high polluting cars and making them pay a charge, which is in some circles unpopular and in some circles very popular, of course. There was no Muslim anti-Sadiq Khan vote, really, not least because, of course, Sadiq Khan is a Muslim, but there are other Muslim candidates who stood for Labour who have suffered. But in Khan's case, he came out very early for a ceasefire, and has been quite clear on that, and I think that helped him. And also, he has actually built, given the restrictions on his budget, he has built council houses. He has introduced free school meals for children at school. I mean, it's not a Marxist program by any means, and that's putting it very mildly, but it's slightly better than anything that Starmer has produced. It's a bit like Andy Burnham, but the party's so bad now that any kind of progressive measures is regarded as regarded as on the left. So in the end, there was a new voting system for mayor. It's no longer the alternative vote. So that was one thing which made people more likely to vote for Khan, because they were terrified. People were generally terrified of the Conservative candidate winning because she's a raving right-wing lunatic and a racist, which also, of course, again, all those Muslim people in London, of whom there are very many, when they're considering not voting for Khan, didn't want to allow in somebody who's just an explicit anti-Muslim racist who used anti-Muslim racism to attack Sadiq Khan. Who's the only Muslim mayor we have, I think, of a major city anywhere in Europe. But the local assembly, which still is run on proportional representation, out of 25, Labour have 11. The Tories have 8, the Greens have 3, the Liberals have 2, and Reform UK have 1. So 1 seat out of 25 on a proportional representation system does not suggest that they're doing very well. And Andy mentioned bins, so that goes into my theme, where there's a joke candidate called Count Binface who goes around London dressed like a rubbish bin. he beat Britain first. So he beat the fascists. So London are more likely to vote for a joke candidate dressed as a rubbish bin than they are to vote for a fascist, which is always good to see. So I'll leave it at that, really. That's all I think I need to say. I think, again, lower turnout, muted, lackluster campaign, no huge rebellion, and a genuine fear amongst workers and amongst, you know, as you said, lesbian and gay people in London, which is a very large percentage, a lot of ethnic minority people in London. They were terrified that this raving lunatic of Susan Hall could get elected, and so that helped Sadiq Khan win. And Sadiq Khan has congratulated Count Binface on his victory over the fascists, which is quite fun.